cannot, we must not, we will not leave our citizens behind. We're going to be focused on jobs, economic vitality, and bringing Philadelphia back from this economic crisis. We're working every day to make this a safer city. Here in Philadelphia, we know how to get things done. We are sick and tired of being sick and tired about blight and deteriorated properties in this city. We are the smart choice. We are the smart city, ready to go. We are incredibly
I'm David Thornburg, the President and CEO of the Committee of 70, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you here today to a celebratory occasion with a significant look forward. When the Committee of 70 was founded 111 years ago by a group of business and civic leaders, one of our founding principles was to protect and improve the voting process. That remains our first principle today as well, and we're delighted to stand here with Mayor Nutter and the Urban League of Philadelphia's CEO, Roz McPherson, to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the signing of the Voting Rights Act, a momentous occasion in our nation's history that brought the weight of law to this fundamental American right. It's now my pleasure to introduce our great Mayor Nutter to come to the podium to offer a few official remarks.
Thank you, David. David, thank you very much, and you should know that that applause was actually for you, and it was tremendously enthusiastic by many of the folks from the Committee of 70. Now, I'm pleased and excited to be here. Seriously, I want to thank David for his continued leadership over a long period of time, not just in the most recent position as President and CEO of the Committee of 70. David and his family as a family, have demonstrated varying levels of true public leadership and commitment over many years, and I appreciate you, and certainly your dad and your mom. Roz McPherson, our CEO of the Urban League. Roz, thank you very much for being here. And Akeem Davis. How you doing, man? Our poet and spoken word performer. City commissioners on, maybe I should do this. Oh, okay, this really works out. On the right, my left, your right, Al Schmidt, and on my right, your left, Stephanie Singer. Please recognize our two city commissioners who are here today. In a small building, less than 8 blocks away on Chestnut Street, of course, that building is now known as Independence Hall, our nation's founders put their lives and their liberty on the line to establish this new country, the American experiment. As a nation, generation after generation, been inspired to leave and to try to create that more perfect union for their children than the one that they inherited. And on this 50th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act, we're poignantly reminded of that journey. As one of the most consequential pieces of legislation in American history, the Voting Rights Act of 1965 fulfilled the promises of the 13th, 14th, 15th, and 19th Amendments to our Constitution, all of which work to prevent the denial or obstruction of any American's right to vote. In a greater sense, the Voting Rights Act ensures that American democracy does not work for just a few, but for all of our citizens. In the 5 decades since President Lyndon Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act into law, African American voters have gone from being effectively voiceless in our political process to voting at higher rates than any other ethnic group in the 2012 elections. Our remarkable progress is certainly worth celebrating, but should not cloud our understanding that there is still much more work left to be done. In just 2013, in a court case known as Shelby County versus Holder, the United States Supreme Court struck down the preclearance provision of the Voting Rights Act, focused on preventing the implementation of voting laws that have a discriminatory effect. the Shelby decision has left citizens without one of the most effective tools ever brought to bear against voter disenfranchisement. While some conservatives are spending time trying to impose restrictions that are reminiscent of the days of literacy tests, poll taxes, grandfather clauses, Democrats across the country are working to restore the Voting Rights Act and increase participation in the electoral process. We're committed to fighting to ensure every eligible citizen is able to easily register, every registered voter is able to vote, and every vote is accurately counted. In fact, just this past June, legislation was introduced in both the House and the Senate to counter some of the negative effects of the Shelby decision, known as the Voting Rights Advancement Act of 2015. Common sense solutions can be implemented to improve our election system, ensuring that every American can be confident in their ability to have their voice heard. We stand for the idea that problems are solved with more democracy, not less. Voting is one of the most important things we do as citizens in a democracy. We cannot take for granted our voting rights or forget the extraordinary sacrifices made by many others to secure that right to vote. A couple personal comments, and then we have a proclamation, which I'm going to ask David and Roz to come up. But let me make my personal remarks so that you don't get photographed with me while I'm saying what's on my mind. I think around about the same time right now, President Obama is making comments about the Voting Rights Act as well. For me, I got involved in politics. I came into this building one day somewhere in the late in 1981 or so. Became fascinated with the work of, at the time, the city council and paying attention to what was going on with the city administration. No one in my family was involved actively other than as a voter in government or politics or any of those things. I paid a lot of attention as a kid to what was going on in the country. Grew up in the kind of 60s and 70s, Vietnam War, civil rights actions, riots, death of President Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Medgar Evers. So as a young boy, I was at least paying attention to what was going on and also focused on the draft. The Vietnam War was going on, and I was getting toward that age. I registered to vote as soon as I turned 18. I had the great pleasure just the other day of meeting the first presidential candidate I ever voted for, and that was, of course, President Jimmy Carter in 1976. I don't know what President Obama is going to say, but I have talked to him on many, many occasions, and I have a good sense that he would probably say, and I'm going to say, but for the Voting Rights Act of 1965, I would not be mayor of the city of Philadelphia. I never would have been a member of Philadelphia City Council for 14 and a half years. I might not have ever been able to run for committee person or been engaged in ward politics. And it was as a result of the one person, one vote decision many, many years ago that I was able to be that much more actively involved in the 52nd Ward in Winfield, where I live today, where I got my start in politics. And it was because of voter disenfranchisement that a common police court judge made a decision with regard to the number of divisions in the 52nd Ward back in the late 80s, early 90s. I've been the ward leader of the 52nd Ward since 1990, so in my 25th year. I've been a committee person almost all of the time since winning that first election in 1986. I did move at some point when I bought my house 20 years ago, and for a short period of time I was not a committee person, and an opening came and I ran. So I've been a committee person and ward leader for a long, long period of time, and an elected official for 20 plus years now. Voting is very, very serious. Being an American, we don't ask, quite frankly, that much of our citizens in the normal course of business. But if you've ever been to a naturalization ceremony, and I've been to more than a few, and we had one just recently on July 4th, you will see people who demonstrate through their actions and through their efforts what all of us should really pay attention to as Americans. These are folks who are publicly renouncing any allegiance to any other power. These are folks who have publicly committed, if called upon, to take up arms. They commit themselves to a whole series of things that none of the rest of us are ever asked to do, ever asked to commit to, or required to do, because we are automatically, so many of us, automatically citizens. And I think from time to time we need to remember that democracy is actually an active participation function. It's one of the few things that each and every one of us really should pay that much attention to. There's an election every 6 months. Someone's running for something all the time. And I think there's never been one where someone didn't win. Well, no elected official has ever elected themselves. People get elected because voters come out and participate. And from time to time, you might also have to participate in jury duty. Well, I get called to jury duty, and I do show up. On the other hand, I think both sides are probably smart enough to never, ever want me to be on a jury. But I do show up. And so those are a few things that we really should do as Americans. And it is astounding to me. Everybody has their reason. But it is astounding to me that seemingly increasingly more and more folks are choosing not to vote and then are displeased with decisions that are made by folks who got elected. Everyone should vote, and I will say it, and certainly every elected official should always vote and be an example to everyone else here in the city, in the state, in the country. That is the least that any of us can do who have asked the public to vote for us. So, with that, why don't we have our proclamation? I saved you guys from having to answer any questions about my remarks. We're going to have a proclamation by the City of Philadelphia. So, Roz and David, come on up. It is tremendously well written. It is action-packed with a whole lot of information. So, I will not read it in its entirety. But on August 6th, 229 years ago, President Lyndon Baines Johnson signed into law the Voting Rights Act of 1965, guaranteeing African-American citizens the right to vote. The Voting Rights Act was meant to enforce the 15th Amendment to the Constitution that prohibited federal and state governments from denying a citizen the right to vote based on that citizen's, quote, race, color, or previous condition of servitude. The passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was propelled by the courageous individuals who took part in the Selma to Montgomery, Alabama protest marches and who demonstrated against voting restrictions imposed on black citizens to suppress their vote. In October of 2012, a coalition of groups, including the NAACP Philadelphia chapter, the Committee of 70, the American Civil Liberties Union, came together to challenge the newly enacted Pennsylvania voter ID law on the basis that it placed an undue hardship on tens of thousands of Pennsylvanians in exercising their constitutional right to express themselves at the polls on Election Day. On January 17, 2014, Commonwealth Court Judge Bernard McGinley struck down the Pennsylvania voter ID law as, quote, violative of the constitutional rights of state voters. The work of guarding the unobstructed right to vote, according to the Voting Rights Act of 1965, continues today as the responsibility of all American citizens. On August 6, 2015, the Committee of 70 partners with the Urban League of Philadelphia to observe the 50th anniversary of the passage of the Voting Rights Act. And therefore, I, Michael A. Nutter, Mayor of the City of Philadelphia, do hereby proclaim Thursday, August 6, 2015, to be Voting Rights Act Day in Philadelphia, and urge all citizens to be aware of the continued importance of the Voting Rights Act as it undergoes new challenges to the fundamental components. As we move forward in, quote, seeking to form a more perfect union, we recommit to this sacred task and serve to inspire future generations of Philadelphians and Americans to continue in this great civic duty. Signed by me as the Mayor of the City of Philadelphia, this is an official document of our great city. I'm going to step back and, because I'm not going to try to figure this out, and have presented to both parties as I step back. Come around the front, because the podium is blocked. Are you guys speaking? You doing something? Okay. All right, Russ. I see some power core in the house here. Power core in the back. Come on, Russ.
So, good afternoon. I'm Roz McPherson, President of the Urban League of Philadelphia, and it is truly an honor to be a part of such a historic occasion. I was 12 years old when the Voting Rights Act was passed, and I can remember as a young military kid returning from Europe and driving down to Louisiana and witnessing separate drinking fountains and bathrooms, and vowing at that early age that that was not right and that I would have to be a part of that change. So this really has deep emotional meaning to me all these years later. Our Honorable Michael Nutter is a living demonstration of the power of voting, and I am so happy to be partnered with the Committee of 70 for this occasion. You know, history was made 50 years ago today. People, black and white, lost their lives fighting for voting as a right. And so we must acknowledge the anniversary of this moment. Again, we as citizens must vote and register the moment we turn 18. I consider it to be a rite of passage that says I am a real, concerned, and committed adult. The tragic events of the past 2 years in particular, Florida, Ferguson, Staten Island, Charleston, are brutal reminders to us that we must make our voices heard if we are to be a part of the improvement needed in our communities, especially those related to education, jobs, and justice. This is achieved by casting our vote. We should never feel that our one vote does not count. It does count, no matter what the outcome. All elections are important, not just presidential. The local and state elections dramatically impact our lives. As the mayor mentioned, there has been a steadfast movement to reverse some of the gains made by this important legislation. We must restore those negative changes. And there are steps to be taken, among them making it easier for people to cast their vote, not harder, modernizing the process of voting, ensuring that our democracy is part of this 21st century, and then reestablishing the system of checks and balances that were put in place 50 years ago to reduce the chances for discrimination. The 2014 midterm election underscored the fact that discrimination is still a hindrance when it comes to voting. New restrictions were placed in 21 states, and these restrictions range from voter ID requirements to early voting cutbacks and registration limits. We have only to look back a few months to May 2015. We had an abysmal 27% turnout rate, which means we have our work cut out for us to ensure that we get people registered to those polls. We in our communities cannot afford to be left out of important economic and legislative discussions. At the Urban League, we are passionate about and dedicated to increasing voter participation among the people we serve. We work hard to ensure that we are educating people about the process. So as we prepare for the upcoming elections, we need volunteers to help us get that word out about the importance of voting. We will be supported by our group of young professionals known as NEXT and our guild that is 67 years old. As you know, the Urban League of Philadelphia will turn 100 years old in 2017. So as a movement, we still have much work to do. So I encourage you to get the people in your circles to get out to vote, and we must all be examples to our young people of the undying commitment to change and improving the quality of life that results from our vote. Thank you so much and for your presence here today, and thank you, David, and the Committee of 70 for partnering with us to acknowledge this important time. Thank you.
Thank you, Roz, and it is great to be a partner with you in the Urban League. I just wanted to offer a few concluding remarks and then introduce a very special guest with a very special presentation. I think we all have figured out by now that we're heading into a presidential election year. I think we've all figured out by now that the Democratic National Convention is coming here next summer once we clear the Pope. And we at the Urban League want to take this occasion and these circumstances really to develop some high-impact programming that draws attention not just to our past struggles that resulted in the momentous passage of the Voting Rights Act, but the need to not only protect the vote, but also increase the exercise of that vote. Just to put a finer point, and we're used to these kind of grim statistics, this last primary election, 12% of young voters voted, which is to say 9 out of 10 stayed home. That has to change. It will take imagination, collaboration, and the use of every single platform we can find. Our commitment is to work to engage artists from theater and music to create performance that highlight the voices of those who struggled for voting rights. We want to partner with schools and community organizations to share this message and galvanize their participation. We're fortunate to be joined in that work by David Bradley, and I wanted to introduce him here today. David is a well-recognized director and producer with most of, if not all, the prominent theaters in this region. He's done work at the Constitution Center, People's Light, Indiana Repertory Theater, and on and on. And we're delighted to be able to work with him. Today, we're also joined by, as the mayor introduced, actor Akeem Davis. Mr. Davis is a Barrymore-nominated actor who has also performed throughout all of the significant theaters in this region. And he here today will close this program with some very special words from a very special person. He will share an excerpt of the speech delivered by Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. at the conclusion of the march from Selma to Montgomery in 1965, a key moment in the fight for the passage of the Voting Rights Act. There's no better way to mark this day than with the words of Dr. King. Akeem?
Today I want to tell the city of Selma, today I want to say to the state of Alabama, today I want to say to the people of America and of the nations around the world that we are not about to turn around. We are on the move now. Yes, we are on the move and no wave of racism can stop us. The bombing of our churches will not deter us. The bombing of our homes will not dissuade us. We are on the move now. The beating and killing of our clergymen and our young people will not divert us. Like an idea whose time has come, we are moving to the land of freedom. Let us therefore continue our triumphant march to the realization of the American dream. Let us march on ballot boxes until the Wallaces of our nation tremble away in silence. Let us march on ballot boxes until we send to our city councils, state legislatures, and the United States Congress men who will not fear to do justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with thy God. Let us march on ballot boxes until brotherhood becomes more than a meaningless word in an opening prayer, but the order of the day on every legislative agenda. Let us march on ballot boxes until God's children will be able to walk the earth with decency and honor. The battle is in our hands. The road ahead is not altogether a smooth one, but we must keep going. Now, I know there's a cry today. When will all of these civil rights agitators get out of our community and let Alabama return to normalcy? But we know that it was normalcy in Marion that led to the brutal murder of Jimmy Lee Jackson. It was normalcy in Birmingham that led to the murder on Sunday morning of 4 beautiful, unoffending, innocent girls. It was normalcy in Highway 80 that led to state troopers using tear gas and horses and billy clubs against unarmed human beings who were simply marching for justice. It is normalcy that prevents the Negro from becoming a registered voter. The only normalcy that we will settle for is the normalcy that allows judgment to run down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. Now, I know you are asking today, how long will it take? I come to say to you this afternoon, however difficult the moment, however frustrating the hour, it will not be long, because truth crushed to earth will rise again. How long? Not long, because no lie can live forever. How long? Not long, because you shall reap what you sow. How long? Not long, because the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice.
Okay. Glad I don't have to follow him every day. Tremendous. Just a couple last thoughts, and there may be, I get the impression that there may be, hopefully, some questions about the announcement that we made today, but there may be some other questions that members of the press have, and we'll deal with that in a second. First, I want to acknowledge Councilman from the 1st District, Councilman Mark Squilla, who is here with us this afternoon. Please recognize him. And the second is, as both Roz and David and Roz have talked about, and many of you, and certainly the press, has heard me comment on multiple occasions. I think and every person has to decide for themselves what they want to do, but it is disturbing that 50, 60 plus years ago, in more modern times, at great risk to themselves, to their families, to their children, folks set out on a path much like the creation of our country. We talk about the Declaration of Independence and Revolutionary War, and taking bold action and really kind of throwing your lot together and your fortune. It's in that mold, it's in that spirit that the civil rights marchers, African Americans and whites and others, took on this great challenge of making sure that we had, all of us, the right to vote. Selma is more than a movie. It's a great movie, and if you haven't seen it, you should see it, and don't get caught up in the debate about who did what and how they did it. I think the power is in the recreation of the fact that people marched 54 miles from Selma to Montgomery. And yet we find in Philadelphia and in many other places across the country, it appears to be difficult for people to walk 5 minutes from their home to cast their vote. And other than the fights that we've had about voter ID or some other things, generally, no one is asking you how many bubbles in a bar of soap. No one's asking you to calculate the number of jelly beans in a bottle or to recite various sections of the Constitution of the United States. All you have to do is get up off your ass, walk to the polling place 2, 3, maybe 4 blocks from your house, walk in, tell them who you are, sign the book, go over to an electronic machine, which will take you about 3 minutes to push all the buttons, walk out, and go on with the rest of your life that day. And I just don't think that's too much to ask, because the stakes are very high. And whether it's the general election this year and all the folks who are running, presidential election next year, whatever's the following year and the following year, there's always an election. And people make decisions. As the mayor of the city, I get to perform weddings. And I say to folks, you have to think about government in this context. You are not officially born until some authorized person signs your birth certificate. You are not officially dead until some official person signs your death certificate. And for generally all the vows and everything that go with being married, what I say to the couples after performing the ceremony, then I have to fill out their marriage license. And then I go back to them and say, and now you're really married, because I just signed your marriage license. These things matter. It matters in terms of investment, it matters in terms of education, it matters in terms of infrastructure, it matters in terms of jobs, it matters in terms of poverty, it matters in terms of race relations, it matters in terms of community policing. All of these decisions are made by people or folks who work for people who are elected to office, none of whom elected themselves. And so if you don't like what's going on in government, check yourself first and make sure you voted. And then check with your friends and make sure that they voted. Because today, the way we change things in America is by voting. Either voting people you like in or voting people you don't like out. That's the way it works. So that's our system. To our poetry and spoken word performer, Akeem, thank you very, very much. I will make sure in the future that I do not have to follow you. That's my fault. I'm going to work with the program people in the future on that. To David and Rosalind and David, for both of your organizations, thank you very, very much. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to remind folks about the Voting Rights Act, the Civil Rights Movement, the gains made, and the challenges that we still face. And for that, I want to say thank you very, very much for helping all of us to never forget our past, because it will in some ways dictate our future. Thank you very much. On this announcement, are there any questions from the news media about Committee of 70 and the Urban League and the Voting Rights Act of 1965? Okay. You all are certainly more than welcome to stay. This could be kind of interesting. So we'll see what else is on the minds of the Fourth Estate. Do you have other questions for me? Does anybody have any questions for me? Yes. Okay. So, to be brutally honest with you, I'm aware that charges were made. I actually, to be honest, don't exactly know what those charges are, but I've been, kind of following that case for some time. Seems to be a fairly complicated matter involving, grand jury information and a whole lot of back and forth and all of that. In any event, I think many of my comments will probably be, somewhere close in the neighborhood of comments that I made last week in a different matter. So I don't have all the details, but it is always very clear and easy to say it is never a good day or a good moment for any of us in public service, and more importantly for the public, that any elected official at any level of government faces charges about alleged actions or activities during the course of their public service. It is not good for public confidence, it is not good for our profession, and it is not good for the conduct of business. So, you know, the Attorney General has to deal with these particular issues. It appears from all news accounts that she is, you know, going to mount a vigorous defense. And, you know, we're a nation of laws. We have a system. She will have to go through a process. And at the end of the day, whether elected or not, the general rule here in the United States of America is that a person is innocent until proven guilty. I have not one iota of factual piece of information. I barely can understand what this case is really all about, but that's a whole separate story. It is what it is, and she will have to deal with it as the Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Mike? Well, so I just heard that a few minutes ago. I was out of the building and at a speaking engagement about that technology. So I don't know exactly what the governor said, but I get the gist that that's what he indicated. Again, I don't have a full and complete understanding of the severity of the charges, but again, it's pretty significant if the Montgomery County District Attorney decided to indict or bring charges against the Attorney General for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. That is an extraordinary circumstance and situation. So I think this is a situation where, you know, to some extent, as I said last week, that's obviously a personal decision that any elected official has to make in the context of how they do their job, their sworn duty, on behalf of the citizens of their constituency, district, area, in this case, the entire state, while trying to defend themselves in this particular circumstance. I will say, though, that as a top law enforcement official in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, in that particular position, there is, I believe, an even greater need for the Attorney General to seriously contemplate her ability to represent the citizens of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania under these circumstances. I believe that public confidence is more important than personal position. And so I think that unlike some other elected officials who have similarly found themselves in certain situations, this particular position, I believe, has a higher duty and responsibility in terms of how you do your job going forward as the chief law enforcement officer, and you have actually, at the moment, been charged with a crime. I think that is a very difficult situation. It just happened today. You know, that's pretty much where I'm going to be for today with limited information, but I think this is an even more serious situation than some of the others that we've seen. In my opinion, she should very seriously try to figure out what she should be doing given the position that she was elected to, the nature of that position, and the confidence that the citizens in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania have to have in someone who is the Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. That's probably as far as I'm going to go today, having not read the indictment and not quite honestly fully understanding a pretty complicated, convoluted situation. But it is a serious circumstance, and unlike other statements that I've made in the past about other folks, who have been charged, the nature of her position requires a higher level of scrutiny, a higher level of seriousness about what she does going forward. And as I said earlier, public confidence is more important than your own personal public position. Anything else?
Well, I was just gonna ask, given what you said about public confidence, your thoughts on, obviously, last week you also had to speak about Congressman Fattah, now the Attorney General.
Well, not exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's not a banner week in Pennsylvania. The public has a right to expect all of us, that all of us in not only elected positions, but in any position in government, local, state, or federal, that we are operating with integrity, that there are no illegal actions or alleged illegal actions that obviously have to be proven in the courts are going on, and it always shakes public confidence when these things happen, and quite honestly, has casts an overall concern for the rest of us. The public often doesn't make a whole lot of distinction between this elected official, that elected official, and some other elected official. And so, I mean, it's just not good. As I said, I think last week, similarly, I'm sure, you all in the press don't feel particularly great if a journalist plagiarizes work or does something inappropriate, gets bounced out of their TV station or something. I mean, I have pride in what I do. I love public service, and it is painful to see these things happening. And, as I think about it, I mean, the past couple of years, not so much at the city level, but in other varying levels, I mean, there have been a number of folks who have faced all kinds of allegations, charges, some proven, some have pled out. I mean, all kinds of things going on. It's not good. I mean, it's not good for any of us, and it's forget about us. It's not good for the public when these things happen. I don't think it's a party issue. I'm sorry? Some critics say whatever the hell some critics say. I mean, they're critics. I mean, Richard Nixon resigned. I mean, I think he was probably going down, I was paying attention when I was a teenager. We had, what was the thing up in Harrisburg? And, Republican legislators, Democratic legislators, we've had things here in the city. People do what people do. I don't know that it has anything particularly to do, I mean, there are honest Republicans, there are honest Democrats, there are honest independents, there are honest, whatever party people belong to. Folks get involved in different things, and next thing you know, some charges are made, but I don't think it has anything to do with party. It has to do with people. Last question? I'll read them when I get in the office. Are you going to show them to me and then I'm going to respond? No, I don't think so. Okay, so with that, make sure you go out and vote on Election Day. Okay? See you later.